Bueno, buenos días para todos. Muchas gracias.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to this talk. My name is Fernando Panizza, and I work in the Android generator in the GeneXus development team. I'm going to talk today about the Android platform, what's new with regard to devices. I always want to show you what's going on with the platform, and then I will tell you about the new version of the operational system in the platform, and finally what we can do with GeneXus in this builders event and what we can take advantage of in Android's latest version with GeneXus. So let's see where the mobile world is at the moment. The mobile at the moment, well, in the past we said that the software had invaded the world, and now it's the mobile that has invaded our world. We use it every day to take pictures, to be in the social networks, and also in other aspects of our life. The mobile devices are present. They are more and more important for our work, and they have several functionalities that make them very necessary in our life. This is the world market share of mobiles. Right now, there is a dichotomy between two platforms. It is divided between Android and iOS. Fabian told you about iOS, and I'll tell you about Android. And I like to show this graph because Android is really at the forefront in the market, as you see. And the other important thing is that you don't need to worry about who wins. You need to worry about using GeneXus, because with GeneXus you will be covered to make applications for 100% of the current mobile market. So what's new? I'm going to speak of three aspects. Firstly, what has happened with the mobiles devices, what Android has done this year, and what's new. Firstly, as you know, Android is associated with Google by some because it's a platform that launches the new versions, and others with Samsung because it's the most important manufacturer, but actually it's a conglomerate of several companies that make software and hardware, and each one has a different flavor in Android. But this does not always work well. For those of you who don't know it, this year something strange happened. There was a commercial war, and I'm not going to get into political problems, but there are political problems between the US and China. And what happened was that the US government forbid US companies to have deals with Huawei. And this applied to Google, of course, and it is not allowed to deliver to Huawei the Google Android that contains Google services. This ban seemed to have been postponed at a certain point in time for 90 days or even solved, but now it's in force again. And it would seem that it is going to be enforced at the end, not as strict as it was in the beginning, but still it's going to be enforced. For those who already have a Huawei device, there's no problem because the updates will continue functioning. But the problem is will affect new devices. This is the one that was released last week in Germany, and it's the new Huawei's device that will have to adapt to this restriction. So they have released it with the MWE, but based on the Android 10 open source, without the Android modifications. And therefore, they don't have Play Store, Gmail, all of the Google applications we are used to. This device does not have them. And Huawei, in order to replace them, put a layer of applications as they do in China. This is well known in China. Huawei devices in China have similar applications. Huawei has its own store called the Huawei Store, and this device has these features. So we'll have to see what happens, whether it will be easy or not for Huawei to westernize the device so that it becomes relevant in the Western market. In China, the device is the same they are used to, but on this side of the world, it's a very significant change, especially because of the store. The store is not so well known on this side of the world, and the challenge for Huawei is that all of the applications will be with Android at the moment are published in a Huawei store. And Huawei went one step further and announced that it is going to have its own operational system called Harmony OS. For the time being, there's no device that officially has this operational system, but they're going to start working with watches and then go to the phones. So this is the B plan. It's what's going to replace Android, this new operational system, and maybe in a few years there will be a talk about Harmony OS in a GeneXus meeting. Going back to devices, an important change is that a new category of devices is being created. These are foldable phones that have two positions. Close, they function as a traditional phone. They have a screen, but still you can open them and they become a tablet. There were some coming and goings because they started with prototypes and they were not working very well. The one you see here, the Galaxy phone, failed when it was first released at the beginning of the year, and now it was released again and it's for sale. This is a short video that shows you how it works. This is the mode of full screen, and it's very similar to a tablet. I believe it's 7 inches long, and this is the device when it's folded, and you see how it can be opened and the continuity of the applications is protected. So we are going to see it in the Android support in a few minutes. Another evolution that I have showed several times this week is the full screen in the devices. This is something that several companies have tried. The first one has the infinite screen. This other device was the first one that put the notch on the top of the screen, which was not a very good idea, that was copied by many and now has become popular. This evolution continued, and the innovation in Android has led some manufacturers who tried different things in order to with regard to this device with a full screen. This one has a full screen, and for selfies what it does is to use an engine that is at the back of the screen that can be turned and put at the front. And this one is a One Plus that has a pull-out camera. It has the full screen that has no cuts, and when someone wants to take a selfie, then the pop-up camera is used, and then it hides automatically. With regard to what's new in the devices with Android and Google, I'll show you two that I found interesting. The Pixel 3a was released at the beginning of the year, and the interesting thing was the price. It was a device very similar to Pixel 3 in some features like the camera and the screen. It was a high-end device with a lower price. So at the beginning of the year, there were many sales, but I don't know whether it managed to position Google as a strong brand. This is what we tried. They tried, nevertheless, to position themselves in the market. And by mid-October, the Pixel 4 will be released. Many things have been announced, and I brought you this video, which is a publicity and shows the following feature. As you see on the screen, it can be unblocked with the face, and then it can be managed at a distance with hand gestures. So this is something new that will probably be added to the Pixel 4. Let's talk now about the platform. Firstly, this is a graph that shows the version. No significant change here. There are some programs from Google to try to decrease this fragmentation that I always show you, especially with the Android one that is being widely used. The updates are made by Google, but the diversity is such that the 3 or 4 latest versions of operational system have a market share, and the oldest versions are disappearing, but very slowly. As usual, each version has a dessert in English that identify them, like the sandwich, etc. And this year, the Q version was introduced with this was the name they gave it, Q, and all the features were also presented. And when they decided to choose dessert with Q, the problem was that there was no dessert in this case, and Android decided to change the name in which they named their version. They called it Android 10 in order to have a more global name for the platform, which would be understood worldwide. So no longer desserts names, but a number. But they still have a little statue in Google's campus. They put a statue with the number 10, which they signed, and it represents the version that was released this year. With regard to the features, like in other operational systems and Google and Android in particular, they are very much concerned about privacy and security. This feature has been included in Android 10, more controls over privacy settings and what can be done or not by applications. We are also working on this in order to support the various restrictions that the platform now has. The most important feature in this new version is the foldable support. The phones I showed you at the beginning is the first operational system that can support foldable phones and has an API to manage the continuity of the applications, what the applications must do when the phone is opened or closed. It's the first operational system that has an API for this purpose, and it was released with Android 10. Then in the user interface, a very important feature is the dark mode. Fabian explained it for iOS, and it's more or less the same in Android. The dark mode is supported, and you can choose live dark or you can choose it to be automatic. The advantage is that the operational system goes to mode dark, and the applications automatically also change to dark mode. More specific features. For example, swipe to navigate. This is a contradictory feature. The Android base did not include it, while many manufacturers already had it. And in Android, the button was at the bottom, it was always available. And now in Android 10, this mode with the gestures is available, but you can choose whether you want to navigate with gestures or you want to keep the traditional navigation bar. With regard to other details, there are some changes in notifications, but this one is interesting. The operational system adds automatic replies to the notifications. For example, this is a message with an address, and the operational system adds the button to open the address in the map, and it's done automatically by reading the content of this notice one is receiving. Leaving Android 10 aside, these are new features for programming in the platform. The two languages are Java and Kotlin that has become an official language for the platform. The novelty is that in Google's developers event, it was said that Kotlin would be the main language in the platform. They called this move Kotlin first, and it doesn't change much in the development because you can program in both languages. They are interoperable. The suggestion is to start using Kotlin more because it's more user-friendly and more modern for the programmer. And I'll finish by showing you two technologies that are interesting and have been widely named in this meeting. Artificial intelligence first. With regard to this assistant, Google has had for a long time the Google Assistant, and this year it launched a new hardware for the household. But I also wanted to mention something that was shown at the developers event, the new version of the assistant. It's an assistant that runs offline in the device, and the assistant goes to the cloud, interprets our request, and comes back. But they managed to do it in such a way that it can run in the device, in the phone, and it's much faster than the interaction of questions and answers with the assistant. So it's one of the coming changes with regard to artificial intelligence in Android in particular. And then the other one is augmented reality. This is being widely used in games, but also in applications. This is an example of an application that has it, and I think it's in beta for the Pixels, and then it's going to be extended to more devices. If you stop the phone, augmented reality appears, and there are hints on the screen that sends you in the right direction. And also there are some signs that tell you what's around you and which way we can go, besides the traditional navigation, which is at the bottom. On the top, there are more things that the camera is showing, for example, the shops near you, and this allows us to take advantage of augmented reality in our devices. Lastly, what can we build with GeneXus on top of Android 10 and its new features? Firstly, of course, it's necessary to use GeneXus 16, which we released last year, and we are about to release the upgrade 6, so it will have the latest features. I'll show you the main one we have in Android. Firstly, it's necessary to be up to date with regard to the requirements of the platform. As Fabian said, in Apple they are very strict with regard to the requirements, and so they are in Android. For a couple of years, they have had this restriction to publish in the store. In this case, the restriction starts with API 28 and will be enforced in November. For upgrade 3, we already made the change, so in order to publish in the store, if you are in upgrade 3 or up, you fulfill the requirement that Google has in order to publish in their store. With regard to the tooling, which allows us to compile and create GeneXus applications, we have had upgrades with regard to Gradle, which is a compilation one, and the SDK. They have been updated following Google's guidelines and recommendations. With regard to the libraries, this was described last year or year before, and it's a set of libraries called Android Jetpacks, and it was presented as something new a couple of years ago, and now we are doing a target in GeneXus applications with a couple of upgrades in Android X. And if you program user control, etc., you already have all these libraries that are available for extensions and user controls. And the other new feature with regard to our code is something that Armin and etc. described on Monday. We are putting many things in GitHub. The extension sample, for example, which has been in GitHub for many years, and this is the example we have. At the moment, but also we have more components like the standard classes that are used for offline applications and the flexible client, which is the core of a GeneXus application that is also in GitHub. We've had them for several months. We are working on them and making changes on these new repositories. They will become public shortly when we solve the licenses and some details about their publication. And they will have several advantages for you. The extensibility first. All of the bridges are available, and with your cooperation, you can see our codes in standard classes, for example, in flexible client, and propose changes. And all this increases the transparency for our code. Another thing that is important and is sometimes asked is, well, I generate with GeneXus, I have my APK, and I want to have all my sources related to APK with this repository. I can make all the tool for my application and give my client the source of the application. Leaving the tooling aside, let's look at the features. All this year we have been working on GeneXus scene, making improvements in the user interface and the user experience. Here we have captures of the meetings application that you have probably installed, and there are improvements in the surfing, the smart grid, and in Android we added a new control in order to have the scroll when you have a smart grid, and we have continued improving the user interface and the experience. These are changes that we always need to make in order to be up to date with what the platform requires. And a feature that many have requested in previous years. Now it's available, and I should thank the people from Brazil who helped us in this beta process. This is a PDF report in GeneXus, and now in Android offline it can be generated, and this is how it is run in an Android device. This was one step The PDF would be as a file in the device and you could share it or print it, but the cherry on top of the case was to have the printer API, which now allows us to print the PDF report in a Bluetooth printer. And besides the PDF report, you can print other files in the device. For example, here the photo of the speaker, me in this case. I also printed it with this Bluetooth printer. We have also worked on map layers, adding new layers, so as to be able to select a point more easily in a map. The direction is widely used. It shows us which way we should go, which direction, or the route. And there's another layer that is pending. It's a dimension layer, and we will be working on it. And the last UI feature is this one, the scanner. Fabian showed you today that we already have the scanner for credit cards. This is one we are working on, which is not ready yet, but it's very interesting. It's a scanner for documents. This one is for generic documents, and as you see, it recognizes the documents on the screen, marks them in green, you confirm, and it creates the image that corresponds to the document. So as a PDF, you can do whatever you want with this image, send it to the server, share it, etc. So this new feature has many uses, and hopefully it will be available in these new uses of GeneXus 16. Finally, the UI testing feature. Last year, I told you this could be made by hand with Android commands. We are working on a new object in GeneXus, which is the UI test command. We can put commands in GeneXus that will later be executed in Android in a device, and when we get the results, they should be in GeneXus and tell us whether the test was executed satisfactorily or not. And it's very interesting for testing the UI of our applications. I'm running out of time. So these are the features that are included, and I recommend you to read the notes. They name all of the features I just described more in detail. We are working on the dark mode that Fabian showed you, so that it will be available in the next upgrade of GeneXus 16 and other features. We want to include them in GeneXus, and you should be able to use them. So with this, I invite you to be builders and to build the best Android applications with GeneXus. Thank you very much.